The one thing I always seem to run out of in my workshop is space. And having a machine like this sitting smack bang in the middle of everything doesn't really help. For the price of 4 little casters like these, you can quickly and easily build a mobile base for your shop tools. And to do this, I'm going to be using some scrap 4x2s that I've left over from a previous project. So the first thing I did here was to measure my table saw's feet. And you'll also notice that one side would be longer than the other. And while you're at it, check which side you'd like to have your wheels on. If you put it on the front like this, you might be kicking it all the time. So I'm moving mine to the side like this. After you got your measurements, let's do our first cuts. And we're going to do the long sides first. And what I'll do is I'll put those underneath the table saw so you can actually see what it is we're doing. The next thing to do would be to measure this space between. And then cut that, and it should look something like this. Now do the same for the other side. And while we're down on ground level, let's just check where our wheel's going to go. So one thing to remember is when it swivels, you don't want it to hit the sides. So just move it around until you're happy with that. Next, we're going to use another piece of 2x4, which is basically going to sit on top, and it's going to be holding the wheel in place. So that wheel is basically going to be sitting on the bottom side of this. Something like that. And if I zoom out a little bit, we're basically measuring from this side all the way to this side plus the overhang. After that's been cut, you should end up with something that looks pretty much like this. And the wheel obviously goes on the bottom side like this. Next is the fun part, pocket holes. I love doing pocket holes, they're quick and easy, and if you do not have a Kreg pocket hole jig, I can highly recommend it. It's one of the things I use probably the most when it comes to assembling things like this. It's really quick and easy to do, and it's something I've been putting off myself for ages, and when I finally got it, I wish I've done so sooner. And if you do want to know more about it, I'll leave it linked down in the description for you. Assembling these are pretty easy as well. To fix these together, I'm using 2.5-inch pocket screws. And as you can see, I've also got my Kreg clamp, which is also something that's really good. You can operate this with one hand, and it just keeps everything nice in place while you're putting in those screws. And then we just flip it around and repeat this for the other sides as well. Next, I'm going to fix this part to the frame, and this is the one that's going to hold the casters. So I'm just marking off where that overhang is and just squaring that up with some clamps, and then I'm going to glue it as well, just as an extra measure to hold that in place. And before I screw this, I'm just going to mark off the center and do some pilot holes. And then basically just repeat the same thing for the other side. Once that's done, I'm going to quickly give this a coat of paint so that it matches up with the rest of my table saw. And then I'm going to drill the holes for these little casters. So again, doing some pilot holes and then simply just screwing them in place. Once that's all done for all 4 sides, it's pretty much ready to go. And as you can see, this works perfectly. There's one thing though that I want to point out quickly. Most people try and put it as low as possible. The problem I have with that is when I drop something, which always happens, it's going to get caught underneath. Also, if your floor is not very level, you're probably going to have issues with it moving it around. So I really don't mind having it a little bit off the ground. So having this slightly higher off the ground makes such a big difference for someone like me who's really tall. In the past, I used to kind of stretch down and it put a little bit of strain on your back and your shoulders if you're working here for an extended period of time. So now, as you can see, I can put my hands pretty much flat anywhere without too much fuss, really. And I think this is where it's going to make a big difference for me. Check out this video if you have not seen how we built this little addition to our table saw. It basically allows you to use your router handheld or simply just drop it into place like this. It really is the best of both worlds. Thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.